Hi guys. So as you may or may not know, I do mainly reaction videos, and I've done quite a few of them now since November 2020, and right now we're in July, mid July. I've kind of digressed a few times. I've started to do videos on watches that I make or repair, and a few other things here and there in my garden. One thing I was never intending to do. I was never intending to be a guy who answers questions about life and philosophy, because I don't know anything about philosophy. And to be honest, when it comes to life, I only know about mine, and even there, I don't know too much about it. But I can only describe my experiences when people ask me. Now, first thing I would like to say is that um, look, when someone asks a question, it's amazing. When you set up a channel like this, you get asked all sorts of questions. Some of them I just cannot repeat on this, but you get asked all sorts of questions. And sometimes people ask questions to me that are very touching and moving. And I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a philosopher, I'm not a religious man. I'm not any of them things. I'm just a bloke who will answer a question if I'm asked. And the reason I would do that, given what I've just said, is if a friend of yours or a family member or a loved one says, I need to talk, I'm upset, I'm sure you won't say, I'm not qualified to speak to you, therefore I'm going to refer you to a doctor. You'll try and help them, right? So I'm gonna try and help. And somebody has asked a question about relationships, and it's a tough one. Tough one for me because I mean, I'm happily married now, but when I was younger, I had relationships, and I think a broken heart makes a man, or a woman. I think the more lost we are, the more we find, kind of thing. And it's a tough one. How do you get over somebody when you break up with them? And I can only talk about my experiences. Now, it's important for me to say at this point, I don't have an agenda here. I don't have a script. I'm not reading anything. I'm just going to tell you about my experiences, and what impact that has on you, if any. So be it. So be it. As in, if it's gibberish to you, then that's fine. If I'm being pretentious and arrogant and egoistic, that's also fine. At the same time, if any of it resonates with you or any of it helps you, as it helped me, that's also fine. So, what is the pain in a relationship? So the question was asked, was very very directly asked, and it was sent to me in an email. And the email was, I don't have it in front of me, but it was something like, what is, I'll go back a few steps. So I did a song about who we are. What are we? Are we humans? And it sounds like a bit of a silly title, but it just made sense at the time, and you can find that in my videos. And someone, I got quite a few questions from that and comments. I got 190 something emails about that video, but not many people commenting on it, and I understand why, because it's a very personal thing. And one of the questions that I was asked was about how do you move on from somebody that you've broken up with if you feel very hurt, or something of that nature. I can't remember if they said hurt, but it was about how to move on from a breakup. And I think for me, the most meaningful thing is is the word relationship. So what is a relationship? For me, it's a relationship is a combination of two words: dependency and sacrifice. And sacrifice is underpins love. And what I mean by that is the if love is, I don't believe there are multiple types of love. I don't think you love your dog differently to how you love your mother, or how you love your sister, or how you love you know um your husband or your wife or your child. Nor do I think you ever really love a particular song, or you love, a computer game, or whatever it may be. Love is not. It's not so subjective. I don't think love is something that you do or choose not to do. Love is like imagine it as an ocean. It's an ocean, and whether you are in the ocean or not, love is still there. The ocean still exists. It's whether you choose to dive into it or not, if that makes sense. So you don't create love. You don't. It's not something you give or take. It's something you're either in or not. And that's where the unconditional love comes in. And when we are talking about love for a person, a love for a mother, or a love for a sister, the things that surround the love will differ depending on your relationship with that individual, but the actual love you feel for them is the same. And one way I like to look at that is a flower. If you think about a flower, now a flower will look different to a lot of people. Some people find weeds disgusting. Some people love weeds. Some people like certain flowers over other flowers. But if you got a flower, and no matter who you are, other than if you've got a blocked nose or slightly different, slightly different sensitivity, or even if you suffer from, hay fever or whatever, but the scent of a flower is generally the same for everyone who smells it, right? Regardless of your color, your religion, your non-religion, your ethnicity, your citizenship, whatever. The scent of the flower is the same. How we receive it is a bit different. Everyone will smell it differently. Not everyone likes the same scents, but the scent is still intrinsically the same. If that makes sense. And I think that's what love is. It's the same, almost like gravity. It's a universal phenomenon. I won't call it a force, but it's definitely a phenomenon, and everyone receives it or perceives it in a slightly different way. But when you give yourself to it, when you dive into the ocean, you're submerged, aren't you? You're all of a sudden, you're surrounded by the water, you're surrounded by love. And you can even use the analogy further to say the further down the ocean you get, you're still going to be just as wet as you are at the top than you are at the bottom. But the pressure at the bottom is different. We'll come on to what that means. And it leans itself very nicely to sacrifice, because a lot of parents, 99% of parents, sacrifice something of themselves for their children. A lot of people in relationships sacrifice something themselves for a loved one. It can be an animal. You love your dog, or you love your cat, or you love your horse. You sacrifice a lot of things for your animals, right? If we think about this, if you have a dog, and your dog is unwell, you really feel it. You feel helpless. You take your dog to the vet. Once the dog's at the vet will say, right, you've got to give it a tablet. Let's say the vet says, you've got to give it this tablet every 2 days. You go home, you get everything in order. You say, right, every 2 days, you might put something on your phone. You might use one of them tablet organizers with days on them. You will make sure your dog gets a tablet every 2 days. And why is that? Because you have, not you're in, but you have love for the dog, right? But if a doctor says to you, you've got to take these tablets every 2 days, if you're anything like me, you don't treat yourself the same way you would treat something you love. Does that make sense? If your child had a grazed knee, you put plaster on it, you put Savlon on it, you put cream on it, you make sure they're okay, you hug them, you console them. But if you get a cut on your knee, if you're anything like me, you wouldn't bother with any of them things. I wouldn't put Savlon on my knee. I wouldn't put a plaster on. I'd probably just wipe it off, clean it, and crack on. Why is that? And I think one of the reasons for that is a lot of us don't love ourselves. We give love, we don't take love. And I think it's very important to understand or appreciate the love for oneself. Does that make sense? I think it's important for you to love yourself, and I know that's cliche, but I think there is a huge dependency on external love and not internal love. So when one is in a relationship and they break up, what happens is they are void of attachment. So you get attached to something you're used to, and whether we like it or not, a lot of the things that hurt when we break up is the lack of familiarity. It's basically, I remember when my mother passed away, seeing her glasses or her coat, or thinking, finding something in the house, like she had this set of cutlery that she always had packed away, and opening that, it reminds you of that person. It reminded me of her. And it's that, because I'm familiar with it, it's by association. My love for her is the same, but it's that detachment from that association, because I'm familiar with nothing more than a memory. And when we think about that, we think about what a memory is. A memory is a reoccurrence in the brain of the past, right? Or an occurrence in a mental occurrence of the past. So how do you get over somebody is a very difficult question for me to answer, but I can confidently say one way to be in a position where, I won't say it's easier to cope, but you are stronger and more resilient to deal with problems in life, is to show that love to yourself. Be familiar with yourself, and also appreciate the notion that everything decays, everything ends in the end, other than the truth. Because the truth, by definition, is something that doesn't change, isn't it? And for me, the things that don't change on a personal level are something of a higher dimension. Love is of a higher dimension. So I invest in love. Invest in love for yourself first. And if you invest in love for yourself, then the investment of love that you put into others will not be detached if that other being is no longer with you. Do you see? Because you're still in the same ocean. The only detachment, therefore, becomes the physical embodiment, the physical person, the physical presence. So that's no longer an emotional state. You've digressed into, or transcended into, something called a physical state. And when it's a physical state, we know we can deal with that differently. We don't need to go within ourselves to be detached from something. We just got to get used to the habits, or understand and appreciate the impact, the physical impact of not having something around us. Feels like the familiarity. If I drove a car for 10 years and I sold the car and I bought another car, parts of me will still get into the new car thinking I'm in the old car. It happens. Sometimes you wake up in a hotel and you for a second think you're at home because you're familiar with it. Or how many people here have, I'll tell you, just one that comes to mind is we had a pull down thing on our bathroom, pull down switch. You go in the bathroom, you pull the light switch and it comes on. And all of a sudden we got a switch now, like a button, an on-off switch. I still go in the bathroom and I do that, and there's no wire there. Why is that? Because 90 to 95% of the decisions we make are out of habit. It's because we're familiar with something. So these are subconscious habits. And 95%, using the same distinction of our attachment to another being, is also just habit. It's also just because we're familiar with them. Okay? So, therefore, you can surmise and you can even conclude that that's not love, that's just attachment. And the two are very different. And when you're used to giving, sacrificing yourself for somebody or something because of love, and you no longer have to do that, you can substitute that sacrifice for internal love. Does that make sense? I guess the point being is you don't really need to feel that the two are exclusive, that you have to give everything to somebody. You don't. Give everything to yourself and swim in the ocean of love, but share that with other people. But if that other person or them other people or them other living things are no longer around and you're not familiar with them, you've still got the habit of them being around, it doesn't matter, because you are still in the ocean of love. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, completely ignore it. But for me, that's the best way I can answer that question. Is as simple as this: love thyself. Put yourself first. Treat yourself like you would treat the dog that needs them tablets. Okay? And you'll find the more you love yourself, the more you get to know yourself. And the more you get to know, the more you love. That's not narcissism. That's not ego. That's not vanity. That's not self-indulgent. Because in another video, I kind of explain who you are. And it's not your mind. It's not your body. It's your soul. And the soul is something that deserves love. We've been given this body to keep our soul within it. And therefore, we must, also understand the qualities and the virtues of that soul. It's like saying humans have the longest hair in any living animal on their head. Which is true. You think about all the animals. How many animals have got more hair than us if we left it in its natural form? And why is that? You can argue it's protection, isn't it? You have hair here just to protect your eyes, your pupils. You have hair in places where you need protection, as do all animals. We have hair, longest hair on our head to protect our mind. Yeah, so we protect our mind, we protect our body all the time, don't we? We look for security and convenience. That's pretty much what materialistic evolution is, isn't it? You go for a car, for example, you want it to be more secure, of course, and more convenient, more comfortable. That's what technology provides. But also the soul needs something as well. The soul needs nurturing. And other humans can't help your soul. Only you can. So I think it's important to look within and realize you can be in love with the whole world, right? Not in the sense I said at the beginning of the video. I'm not talking about your computer game or your iPad. I'm talking about the ocean of love with nature. And if some embodiment is ejected from that ocean of love, the soul is still there. So stay with that, and you'll never ever lose yourself. You will never ever want to come out of that ocean. You'll always be in it, whether you're with that person or with that being or not. And enjoy that. Submerge yourself in it and try it. A lot of people say to me, it's my last comment on this, and I am going to digress to this subject because I want to, is God. A lot of people say, have you found God? It's the same as love. Have you found love? No, don't find love. Don't find God. Lose yourself in love. Lose yourself in God. That's it. Thank you very much. There we are.